Good afternoon. I'll wait for all you to get your seats. Well, I didn't mean to keep you completely quiet here. There's little talking going on. Welcome to a memorial service for a very dear friend, family member. Dutch, of course, I wouldn't say the better half, but the half of Lois. I believe you, Lois, being the babe, were the better half. Steve and Sherry. We've got quite a few of the family members here, and I'd like to take this opportunity, first of all, to let you know who they are. And we have here Dutch's son, Steve, and wife, Debbie. I think we're sitting over here with Shelby and Danielle. Okay. And Dutch's daughter, Sherry Pepper. And Rick, somewhere around here. Rick, somewhere, oh, right over there. That's good. And Miles Gabriel. Great. And then we have Michael Blocker and his wife, Laura. And thank you for coming. And welcome all of you to a memorial service for our dear, beloved Dutch. In fact, did anybody even know him by John? Did anybody call him that? Wait, one person? Well, two, three? Okay. I don't think I ever heard anybody refer to him that way. I saw his name all the time that way, but I knew that wasn't who I knew. This was Dutch to me. And when I think of Dutch, few words came to my mind anyway. One was enthusiasm, challenged you on many levels, and he had that ability to look at you and quickly figure out where you're going to fit in his plan. And then somehow he got you involved in his plan, and there was never a way for you to say no to that. Ever, ever, ever. He was a master at his work. He was an iconic leader here in Oakmont. A lot of us have served in committees with him, committee members with Dutch. Look at this, how many committees? I'm sure we'll have people come up here and talk about different committees that he was on. You know, he had that twinkle in his blue eyes that you knew something was up when you saw that. And I think that really made me smile a lot when I saw Dutch. It was like, what has he got planned for me? Does anybody else have that general feeling that was going to be going on? I thought you would. Dutch was curious, age-defying. He liked to make plans, and he'd like to put you into those plans, which I thought was fabulous. But the main thing that Dutch provided for me in my relationship with him and my relationship with Lois is after I was with Dutch, I liked myself better. Dutch just had that ability that once you somehow bought into whatever his plan was, you felt great about doing it. Because Dutch always had a higher goal, and it was never about him, ever. It was always about somebody else. It was always about giving back to a community, and that's how I've known Dutch. I'd like to thank Nick Rose. Nick was doing our guitar man. Thank you very much for that, Nick. And we would like to start with a video. And this is a video part one, and I have Steve Licklider, but I believe, who did this video? There we go, Miles, great. Gary, are we ready to do the video?
I'm Steve Licklider. My father is John Calvin Licklider, otherwise known as Dutch. He died unexpectedly on May 20th, 2015. My dad loved genealogy, history, and telling stories about friends and family. In the later part of his life, he started getting into video. He developed a real passion for making videos. And the family thought that it would be an appropriate tribute to make this video for him and share some of our memories of him. People in Oakmont knew Dad primarily from his involvement in the community over the last 8 years. It's become apparent since his passing that he had gotten to know a lot of people in the community, and we're so honored that he touched so many lives. we hope you'll enjoy learning a little bit more about him before he came to Oakmont. Dad was born in 1934 in Salisbury, Pennsylvania, a small rural town in the southwestern part of the state. The community only had about 700 people. Everybody knew each other there, and it seems everybody had a nickname. People might wonder about Dad's nickname, Dutch. Well, Salisbury is in the Amish country. The Amish were German immigrants who had settled in the area, and they were known there as the Pennsylvania Dutch. Many of them had heavy German accents. When Dad was young, he didn't speak very well. People couldn't really understand him. And they would say, "Oh, he must be speaking der Dutch." And that's how he got his nickname. It stuck with him, and he carried it through for the rest of his life. The nickname Dutch suited him well. He loved the Amish. He always had a fond memory of Pennsylvania, and a big part of his heart was always in Salisbury. In Salisbury, Dutch's grandfather owned the local grocery store, and as a kid, Dad worked for his grandfather, delivering groceries to the local community. Dad was also a drummer in the local town band. He loved to march in parades. He used to tell stories about how the hand-me-down uniforms that he'd received were always too big for him, and the hat was flopping over his ears, and he'd trip over the pants. When he was in high school, his band marched at the Somerset County Maple Sugar Festival, and he often told us about that day and how he fell in love with the Maple Festival Queen. Dutch always said he wasn't a great student, but he got into college at Penn State, and he remained a Nittany Lion fan for the rest of his life. He told me many times how he struggled to make it through engineering school, and he had to take summer school to graduate. But that actually turned out to be a blessing, because it just so happened that the Maple Festival Queen, Lois Lake, was also there that summer. They met on a double-blind date at a fraternity toga party. The funny thing is they were the other people's dates. Eventually, Dutch ran into Lois again, and they started dating. Soon thereafter, Dutch took Lois home to Salisbury for Thanksgiving to meet his parents for the first time. On the way, he stopped at the liquor store. Not surprising for those who knew him. The store owner was also on the military draft board. He recognized my dad, and he said, "Hey, Dutch, you've been drafted into the Army." Well, Dad was so romantic. He came back to the car, tossed the bottle onto the seat, and asked my mom if she would marry him. She apparently said yes, because the wedding happened 1 week later, and then Dad went into the military. There was so little time, and he had so little money, that Lois had to buy her own wedding ring. But years later, he made up for it. On their 50th anniversary, he gave her a beautiful new wedding ring on a cruise with the whole family. So I guess he did have a little romance in him. In the Army, Dutch was stationed at the Presidio in San Francisco. As soon as she could, Mom packed her stuff and drove across the country, and they started their lives together in California, where my sister Sherry and I were born a few years later. Mom and Dad always said how lucky they were to have ended up in such a beautiful spot, and Dad loved the fact that he got to learn to fly airplanes at Crissy Field under the Golden Gate Bridge. After getting out of the Army, Dutch went to work for a civil engineering firm in Sacramento, where he made many lifelong friends, some of whom are here today. As he progressed through his career, we moved to Texas, and he started his own engineering firm, John Licklider and Associates. The company was focused on providing design services for new land development projects. Houston was growing with the oil boom, and the company prospered. Eventually, he partnered with his longtime friend, Bill Jameson, and together they expanded Licklider, Jameson and Associates to a 200-person firm with offices in major cities throughout Texas. He became a leader in the community, he was president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he was politically active. Dad always loved politics, and anyone who had a glass of wine with Dutch knows he was the first to strike up a political debate. In the 1980s, Dutch and Bill capitalized on an opportunity to sell the company, and Dad retired at the relatively young age of 55. Dutch and Lois moved to Lake Tahoe, and then later to Scottsdale, Arizona, where Dad designed and built their own custom home in the desert. In retirement, Dutch and Lois stayed active. They traveled all over the world. They eventually moved back to California, though, to be near family. Dutch had a need to connect with people. He became extremely interested in genealogy and made connections with Licklider relatives from all over the country. He traced the family tree back 6 generations, and before you knew it, he had founded the Licklider Family Association, and he was organizing family reunions in Salisbury and writing family newsletters. I believe the satisfaction he got from developing these relationships led him to his true calling here in Oakmont, where he put so much effort into connecting with people. He used to boast that he had over 700 friends on his Facebook page. Not that he actually knew all of them. But he saw it as a perfect tool to spread the word about what a great place Oakmont is, and he devoted a lot of time to communicating that notion. When he started having grandchildren, Dutch was given another important nickname, Pop Pop. He loved his grandchildren very much, and he was always sure to tell them how proud he was of them. I see Dutch in every one of his grandchildren, and I know he will rest in peace knowing that his legacy lives on. Dad was so supportive of our family. He gave and gave to us. He was my mentor, he was my inspiration, and he was a rock of our family. I can't count the times I went to him for advice. He rarely told me what to do, but he always offered encouragement. He gave me support, and he helped me find my way through life many times. I've tried to follow in his footsteps, but his strides were long, and it's hard to measure up to him. He did amazing things in his professional career and his personal life. He was a leader, and he knew how to organize people and motivate to get things done. I admire all he did while he was on this earth. Dad, you weren't perfect, but you always tried to do good things. I'm going to miss you.
What a great video. We're going to have a few speakers come up. Our first speaker is Michael Blocker, and Michael is Dutch's nephew.
Hello. My name is Michael Blocker. Dutch was my uncle, and I'd like to share a few brief things, memories that I have of Dutch, primarily early memories, to fill in some of the great video and pictures you've just seen. Dutch was only 14 years older than me, and was around when I was a young boy. I remember my first vague memory of Dutch. You saw that ball diamond? He came walking in from playing baseball, and I was sitting on that porch that you saw in that video. And he came up, rubbed my head, and he was taking off his cleats. And the memory is of those cleats, and I thought, those are really strange shoes. The second memory that I had of him was that Licklider store. My mom and dad lived above that with my older sister and myself. And I remember Dutch coming over often, sitting on his lap, hanging out. It was great times. And then when my parents left Pennsylvania and moved to Minnesota, Dutch went up there and worked in the summers, lived with us. I think it was a summer job during college. And it was great having my uncle. He was cool. He was only, just a few years older than me. One of my most favorite memories was when he left Penn State, and I got to go with him to the Theta Chi house, help him move some things out. It was really confusing for me. I was pretty young, and I didn't understand why they were called the Oxes, not understanding Greek letters. My most vivid memory is when my great-grandfather passed. And Dutch was, I believe, living in California. And I was sitting on the porch, and we were all waiting for Dutch to come in for the funeral. And when his car arrived at the house, my grandfather, Dutch's dad, Reese, came out of the house, rushed up to Dutch, and they had a very tearful embrace. That was a very powerful moment because I realized at that time that Dutch really was taking on the mantle of patriarch of our family. He was always there for every one of us. Unbounded gifts, and always there. Didn't matter what. Selfless. And I was really fortunate to have such an uncle, and I'll miss him dearly.
Our next speaker was one of Dutch's business partners from Sugar Leone, Texas, I believe. And this is Bill Jamison.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We're all gathered here today to celebrate the life of a great guy. Dutch and I go back over 55 years from working together in that small engineering firm that Steve mentioned. We seem to cross paths both in geography and interest and careers all over the country for those 55 years. And as opposed to being just a friend, Dutch and his whole family were more like our family. My daughter, in learning about Dutch's passing, remarked that it was like losing a member of her family. And we all felt that way, myself, Susan, because we were such close friends and close associates for so long. We all kind of share a common grief today and celebrate Dutch's life, you know, the loss of a wonderful friend, a husband, father, grandfather. Really tough when it happens suddenly, and we're all coming to grips with that. I think, as I think about over the years with Dutch, a lot of memories come flooding back. As I said, we started together in the early 60s in Sacramento. We ended up in Lake Tahoe, working together with a firm, and then crossed paths and ended up in Houston, Texas, where we became partners and built a fairly substantial engineering firm. The interesting thing about that was I was on my way back from New York, having lived up there, and was going back to California. And Dutch, of course, was already in Houston. Well, I stopped in Houston, and he said, why don't we get together and do this engineering thing? And I said, yeah, let's do that, but I'm going back to California. I'm still in Houston, and Dutch ended up in California. But as somebody said, he was a guy that could really make you do things that he wanted you to do. So what kind of a person was John Calvin Licklider? And I knew him as John Calvin. Ron McIntyre knew him. It goes back 50, 60 years. He was a great businessman. He was my mentor, really. He was tough. You know, Dutch and his family will know this, had a temper. He could fly off the handle pretty good. He always kind of came back down to earth, but it was quick and spontaneous. But it kind of, it actually helped him in business. Because of that attitude and being a great businessman, we built a very nice firm. Dutch was kind of I call him a man of the world. He was interested in so many things, an avid reader of all kinds of things, and in all our conversations over the years, he was always, what are you reading today? What's interesting? How many people in their 70s get into technology like Dutch did here at Oakmont? Pretty amazing. People in their 70s and 80s don't hardly know how to turn a computer on. Dutch decided he was going to be a technology wizard here in Oakmont. He was involved in politics his whole life, as Steve mentioned. And we talked a lot about politics over the years, lots of times on opposite sides. I never did understand his politics, and I told him that. So we never did quite agree on politics, but we talked about it because we wanted to save the world, and we thought we had the answers to do that. Dutch was also a pilot, as Steve mentioned. I want to tell you one story. Now, Dutch was a good pilot. He was a good pilot. I flew with him a lot of times. And I'll never forget one time we were flying from Fort Worth, Texas, over to a little airport called Addison, which is north of Dallas. And we got up in the air, and the controller came on and said, whatever the call letters were, Alpha, Bravo, Papa, do you have the airport in sight? And we're scanning the horizon looking for this Addison airport. And Dutch responded, no, we don't. All right, let me know when you have it in sight. A few minutes later, controller comes back on. Do you have the airport in sight yet? And we're scanning, no, we don't. And the controller said, it is the largest airport in the world. Well, we looked down, of course, we were over DFW. And he said, it's not only the largest, you are in controlled airspace. Okay, so we zipped off, found the Addison airport. There were several instances like that. Me not being a pilot scared the hell out of me. Dutch was always seemed to be in control, and so I just depended on him as I did in so many things. But Dutch loved baseball. He was looking forward. I know we talked about the 2015 season. And he was also a pretty good ball player himself. We played softball, league softball in Sacramento in our younger years. He had a love-hate relationship with golf, like many of us do. He quit golf more times than I can count. But he tried it, and he kept going after it. But golf is like that. You know, when I think about Dutch, there's so many memories that go back to being partners for 20 years. So many things we did together, so many laughs that we had together. All our conversations, particularly these last few years, would revolve around family, would revolve around Lois, his grandchildren, how they were doing. He loved his grandchildren. And it's interesting, Susan and I have 2 children, a boy and a girl, just like Dutch and Lois, 4 grandchildren, just like them. And so we spent a lot of time in our last years talking about grandchildren and about family and about how we were doing. He was always checking on me and me on him. And that's the way our relationship was. From the time I heard the news about Dutch, I've struggled to kind of accept it, to understand the loss. And I think the only way to accept it is like this, is celebrating his life and understanding that because of Dutch, the world's a better place. And because of us loving him and knowing him, we are better for it. And I'll miss my dear friend very much. Thank you.
We have a little music interlude with Just Breathe. Happening with Paula and Dave Paula. It's a video. Video, Gary, for the music?
Yeah, so we say, yeah, we're Dave and Paula, longtime neighbors.
Of the wonderful Pepper family.
wonderful Pepper family, and this is just our little way of honoring Dutch.
He's a great guy. Yes, I understand every life must end. As we sit alone, I know someday we must go on. Oh, I'm a lucky one to count on both hands the one I love. Some folks just have one, yeah, others they got none. Stay with me. Let's just breathe. Practiced all my sins, never gonna let it win. Under everything, just another human being. Yeah, I don't wanna hurt. There's so much in this world to make me believe. Stay with me. You're all I see. Did I say that I need you? Did I say that I want you? Oh, if I didn't, I'm a fool, you see. No one knows this more than me. As I come clean, I want the dead. As I look on your face, everything you gave back, nothing you would save. Nothing you would take. Everything you gave. Did I say that I need you? Oh, did I say that I want you? Oh, if I didn't, I'm a fool, you see. No one knows this more than me. As I come clean, nothing you can take. Everything you gave. Hold me till I die. Me on your side.
And that was Paula Matzinger and Dave Peterson who performed that beautiful song for Dutch. We have a few more speakers. Our next speaker is Cassie Turner. Cassie is our OVA manager and worked very closely with Dutch on many of his projects. Usually it's the property manager has projects, but no, this way it was Dutch had the projects, and Cassie, I believe you were involved in them, weren't you? Come on up here.
Hello. I am honored to have been asked to speak today about Dutch by his daughter, Sherry Licklider Pepper, and Steve Licklider. Dutch was one of the first residents I met when I started my job as Oakmont manager, and I also began attending the communications committee meetings. I figured this out about him right away. He was an idea man, and he knew how to turn those ideas into results. Everyone knows Dutch was a techie, and he was a techie with a purpose. It can be said rightfully that he brought Oakmont into the digital age, using technology to help residents get connected and knowledgeable about the goings-on of the associations and the board. He started videotaping Sunday symposiums to give residents more information in the comfort of their homes. Dutch brought all the video equipment, and he also took the time to edit all the videos at no cost. Who does this? Soon, his videotaping took up so much of his time that he created a concern called Oakmont Video Productions that could charge a nominal fee to cover some of his costs, but mostly he paid for everything himself. Next, he convinced the OVA board to have their meetings videotaped. No small task. Eventually, Dutch was able to get some help by teaching Gary Pickering how to videotape, and together they were able to tape many video events in addition to the board meetings. Now, everyone takes for granted that Oakmont presentations will be videotaped, and they can sit and watch them in the privacy of their own homes. Many thanks to Dutch and now to Gary. Most recently, he streamed Candidates Night Live, so no one had to miss a beat in real time. I would be hard-pressed to name another association that has ever done that. As chairman of the Communications Committee, Dutch was always inventing the better mousetrap, so to speak. He scoured the internet looking for communications methods and projects that could be put to use here in Oakmont. My weekly manager's e-blast is one of those things. My head jerked up when he mentioned it at a communications committee meeting. I looked at him and I went, really? Really? You really want me to do more than I already am? How could I possibly work any harder? And Dutch had this habit of throwing an idea out there and watching you kind of twist in the wind. And then he would sit back and he knew you'd figured it out. You know, it's just that he was a little ahead of where you were. So we had a wonderful learning experience through the e-blast. And I'm here to tell you now that that idea has become one of the best things that's ever happened to Oakmont and to me. Every day, Harriet Pauck, my partner in crime in creating the newsletter, and I get thanks for bringing news and laughter to Oakmont residents. If I am ever remembered for one outstanding thing I did for Oakmont, it will be for the e-blast, which was Dutch's idea. Thank you, Dutch, for making me look so good. Over a year ago, Dutch had another idea. He thought our website was outdated and he wanted to create a new website. And because he felt ours was not only outdated, it just wasn't as user-friendly as it could be. And because he was a leader and a team player, the communications committee quickly got on board with the idea and convinced the OVA board that this was a good idea for Oakmont. Jackie Ryan took over from Dutch's committee chair and is continuing Dutch's work on the website with the assistance of the committee and Gary and Kat from our office. The new site is only a couple of months away from going live. Dutch's work and passion for making things better also had a very personal side for me. I knew at once with the first meeting that we had that Dutch was genuinely interested in me. He was curious and excited that I was a kind of a blank page and ready to learn everything I could about Oakmont in 2 minutes or less. And I knew he wanted me to succeed. I felt that. He was someone I trusted and I learned from. He always listened hard, anticipated needs, and responded honestly. In late August or September, we will be relocating the OVA office. And so here was one of his last ideas for us, to carve out some space in the office for producing videos. And as usual, it's a great idea. Therefore, we are creating a video room and dedicating it to Dutch. We want to continue the work he started. Dutch earned the Volunteer of the Year Award in 2014 for his generous commitment of time, talent, and treasure to his community. There is no greater gift, perhaps, than that of one's time, and Dutch gave much of his time to Oakmont with abandon. I will greatly miss his vision, his leadership, his twinkling eyes, as was stated before, his smile, and his huge heart. Dutch mattered to me, and he mattered to Oakmont. I am so glad to have known this extraordinary man. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Sherry, the beloved daughter.
I have no speech. I tried this morning, but it's been rolling in my head for my 53 years until Tuesday when I'm 54. And my dad always sent me a really nice check on my birthday, even when I was 54. So I'm gonna miss that, Mom. I'm gonna come get you. So if I start rambling, Jenny, please get me off here if I need to move a little faster. But the thing that I have heard today and that I want to emphasize is my dad had an ability to get things going, and he also did that with our family. And we moved. He was a man on the move. He left Salisbury because of the Army, but that was really his destiny, was to be on the move. I can't give you all of the places my mother and he lived before I was born, but when I was born, it was Sacramento, if I even get this right. Then we went to Lake Tahoe, and then another house in Lake Tahoe, and then we went to Roseville, and then we went to Ross. And then Dad came home and said, we were moving to Texas. And I thought, yippee, I'm gonna get a horse. And then we were in a couple of houses in Texas, and it was hard. We moved schools, it was tough. And then they continued to move, but that is what he loved. He loved to plan, he loved to explore the map. Getting from here to there was the treasure, and once he was there, he was bored, and he was looking for the next place. Except when he got here, he loved this community, and he told us he never needed to move again, which I was really grateful for. But also, it speaks so much of all of you, and I just want you to know, all of you, and family, he loved people, and he did love his family tremendously, but he loved this community greatly. And we heard a lot of stories about you, and we heard about the committee meetings, and we heard about the board meetings, but he loved to share, and he wanted to inspire people to be involved and make something happen. And later in life, he started saying, you know, you can't save the world, but you can do something for those you can touch in your life, in your family. And I think that's really what he felt here. And so I often thought, because he and I used to trade books, we would read historical fiction, or he loved to read adventure, Lewis and Clark. And I thought, if Dad had been born at a different time, he would have been on a ship. He and Mom traveled to China. They took a trip in Romania. They were in Russia when Russia was Russia. Machu Picchu, down the Amazon, which Mom reminded him he did not like it. Europe, and never made a big deal. They'd go on the trip and come back, but it was always here. And the Rovers, he loved that probably more than any of his big trips. He loved being in that trailer. He always tried to get us to take the trailer, or the, what did he call it, the rig out, and none of us would ever bite. So, but he loved traveling with you so much. He couldn't have been happier. So I feel that this is where rightly he was with a community that he loved. He respected the people here and his friends. And there's one other thing I want to say, because his ability to be so involved in the community and to have the time that he was able to give was very much dependent on support he's had from our family in caring for his beautiful bride. And he loved you so much, Mom. But I want to thank one person in particular who he wanted, Bianca. Bianca's been caring for my mother for 7, 8, we're not sure. She's going like this for as much as I can remember. And her extended family has touched our family, and they are here today. And he went to Mexico to a wedding. He loved you all. And Bianca, thank you from the bottom of our heart. If anyone, Bianca's well known in the community, I hear. And we love her. He loved you all, and I just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sherry. We're going to have a little time for open mic right now, and two friends and colleagues here at Oakmont of Dutch will give us a hand. Jackie Ryan and Susan Millar. They're going to pass out mics, so if you want to say something, just raise your hand and they'll get the mic to you, okay? One, two. That's a Dutch thing.
Yeah, this mic works now. Jackie, I'm just going to say a couple of words, and then we'll pass it to who you've got there. I've known Dutch for some time, but the thing that really gave me insight into what a wonderful guy he was, about 2.5 years ago, he called, he said, okay, you're doing the 2013 50th anniversary for Oakmont, and I'm going to do videos for you. And Bob Chapman, who was my co-chair, and the first video was done in early 2013. By the time we did the second video, I think we'd sold out of all tickets. There was nothing more to buy. But he continued. We did altogether 3 videos for the 50th celebration for Oakmont, and I really feel that Dutch is the one that got that parade going, and we got our sellout on 3 different events, and he did it happily, and he had a lot of fun too, and I had a lot of fun. So Jackie has somebody over there, and I'll be working this side.
I'm on mic too? Good.
My name is Alex, and if Dutch had a fan club, I would run for president. This is a short but very lovely and very profound poem by the English poet John Donne, contemporary of Shakespeare, lived from 1572 to 1631. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is a less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. Therefore, send not to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Dutch, I am richer for having known you. Rest in peace.
You remember Dutch as a loving, husband and as a devoted husband of Lois, lovely Lois, as a loving and proud dad, as a loving and proud grandfather, as a business partner, as a friend of many of you, and likely in many other ways. I remember Dutch as a true great American and leader. Like Meriwether Lewis, he pioneered, kind of like Joe DiMaggio pioneered. Dutch pioneered high tech in Oakmont. When we IT professionals failed to do the OVA technology, Dutch stepped up to the plate. Okay, what else is there? Was a question he once asked of me. It was his response to my statement concerning atheism and agnostics, when I had told him over a Scotch that my wife had led me to the faith in God. So he said, what else is there? Dutch is a mentor that I will forever reach for. My last point is that of style. Many of you will no doubt remember the style of Dutch. On New Year's Eve, that handsome dude with lovely Lois under his arm, dancing the beautiful Tennessee waltz, made for the most elegant and gracious couple in Oakmont. Thank you. Thank you. So long.
My name is Richard. I also served on the Communications Committee with Dutch. Farewell, Dutch. You gave us so much. Everyone here did not feel your touch. You loved to create and edit those videos. I'm sure you hear now all of our Cheerios. But we come to a time in everyone's life when they can no longer keep up with the strife. The portents may shadow, cast a dark cloud. Our hearts will turn over, invoking a shroud. It's hard to explain how pleasure and pain envelop our lives again and again. With spells of bright sunshine, then showers and rain, they paint our experience, undulating terrain. But death's not a bad thing, the soul's on the wing. We should not be too sad or wanting to cling. After all, I'm sure that you'll want him to be, without earthly coils, a spirit quite free.
My name's Miriam, and I'm Brenda Sherry's, and I actually didn't expect to speak today, Sherry, either. I met Sherry shortly after my own father died, and her youngest son and my only son became friends. That's how we met, when the kids were in preschool. And the thing about Sherry, they moved so much, and she wanted to stay put when she was here, and she had this really wonderful family, and she always wanted to make it bigger and bigger. And I know that the rest of her friends who are here today know how much Sherry kept bringing the rest of us in. And when I met Dutch and Lois, especially Dutch, he didn't just center on his own family, he wanted to know about us all the time. And Lois did too. And where my son didn't have a grandfather, because both his had died, he had Dutch, because Dutch and Lois came to their sports events, their graduations, their open houses, our Thanksgivings, our dinners, things at our house. They were there. They invited us. We were part of their family. I guess for Sherry, I want you to know that I miss my father almost every day when I stop and think about it. And he died, I don't know, 17 years ago, something like that. I had a relationship like you had. But your father came in and helped me, and he'll always be with you, Steve too, and he was a great man who made your family bigger and brought us all in. And I just want you to know we love you, and it's all gonna be good. And you can see it in those kids sitting there over there. and Miles and Shelby and Danny and Gabe, and oh my God, they're just there. And I want to thank you, Lois and Dutch, and everybody for bringing us into your family, and I know that your friends feel the same way.
My name is Bill Hendrick. I'm a Missouri farm boy turned engineer. And in our day, we all had to go to the military, so I had spent my time in the Navy and was discharged at Fraser Island and headed back to the farm in Missouri. Only got as far as Sacramento and was offered a job with a consulting firm. And Dutch was there at the drafting table next to me. So we chased each other back and forth across the country like Bill James for the next 50 years. Dutch had been out of school a little longer than I, and so he mentored me. One night I had a planning commission meeting in Chico about 1965, and it's kind of a long drive from Sacramento to Chico. So Dutch said, how about if I fly you up there? I said, oh, great, that'd be great. So we get in this plane, and we had to stop in Auburn, and as he was making an approach into Auburn, I looked out the right side, and there was a treetop kind of right real close by. And I pointed out to Dutch, and he said, oh, and he jumped up, and we went around and made another approach, not quite so low. After he landed, he said, well, that's 2 firsts for me. First time I've ever flown with a passenger, and first time I've ever flown at night. And I said, oh, gee. But we made it, and as I say, I flew with him many, many times after that. After he moved to Scottsdale, I was living in Scottsdale. I was still trying to make a living, and he would fly me to my remote projects around the state of Arizona. And we sometimes, Lois, Nancy, and Dutch and I, we would just go for a joyride on Sunday morning. And one joyride was over the Grand Canyon, kind of a low elevation. That was before they banned such flights over the Grand Canyon. Anyway, I admired his good judgment when as he got older. He said, that's enough. And he sold his airplane. But I thought that was a good thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Hi. I'm the guy on the left side that was skinny in that fishing picture. I tell you, I've been really singularly blessed to have 2 or 3 wonderfully close friends, and of course John, and I'm the guy that used to call him John. John Dutch, he was to me a real special person, and I'd like to give witness to the fact that all the speakers spoke the truth today. He was a wonderful man, a wonderful friend. I loved him dearly as a friend, and I'm going to miss him for a long time.
My name is Victor Spear, and 6 years ago I gave a presentation at the Sunday Symposium that was very personal to me, and I had poured my heart and soul into it. And a week later, when I went back for the next presentation, he walked up to me and handed me a DVD that he had made of my presentation that I had no idea he was doing. No thanks expected. That's just what he did. I never told him this, but that DVD has gone almost platinum with the number of copies that people and friends and relatives asked for it. And I'm sure he'd be very pleased to hear that.
Jackie?
Debbie, Steve's wife.
Is it on?
Oh, there we go.
You're on. You're on.
I guess one of the things that I wanted to say was, Dutch and I had our own kind of unique relationship, and sometimes we'd argue about stuff, and he didn't like Apple Computer, and he didn't like the San Francisco Giants, and he wasn't that into the stock market, but what he was into was his family. And the way he took care of Lois over the years was amazing. And he did it so selflessly. And even though sometimes you could tell it wasn't his natural thing, he did it all the time, consistently. He had spreadsheets of her medications, and he was there 24/7, and he was amazing. And his interest in bringing all the whole family together for trips, for holidays, for dinners was something that he was kind of the glue, the rock. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm going to tie it up here. What can you say when you hear all of these things, except perhaps ditto? And I have to think, what would Dutch say if he were here to see this? I know he would be amazed. The night before Dutch left us, we had a drink at the Quail Inn. We often met for coffee, or this was late in the afternoon, so we had a drink. And as we were leaving, a man stopped him and said, "Aren't you Dutch?" And he said, "Yes." And the man said, "I gotta tell you," he said, I so appreciate what you do by taping the board meetings and everything that goes on here, because otherwise I wouldn't know what was going on, because I can't get to them." And as we left, Dutch turned to me and said, "Can you believe that guy said that?" And I said, "You bet I can believe it. I'm sure hundreds would echo what he said." And, when I came here, Dutch was one of the first people I met. In 3 minutes, he talked me into doing something. When I retired, I said, "I'm never doing that again." And here I was doing it again. And all I can say about Dutch, and this is most telling, is in the time that I've known him, I've been here a year and a month or so, and I felt like I knew Dutch all my life. And I think that's probably about the best thing you can say about it.
Thank you for sharing your memories. I know it means a lot to the family to hear this. Thanks, Sue. We have a video, and this video is a very special one. This is Shelby and Danielle Licklider and Miles and Gabriel Pepper, Dutch's grandchildren. Oh, wait. Okay. Sure.
I just wanted to add that at the end of the video, you'll see my father, and I just wanted to explain so it doesn't take anyone by surprise. At Christmas this past year, he made all of us sit in front of a video camera and talk about life, which we all did. And then when he published the video to our family, he was the last speaker. So I just wanted to let you know that he will be appearing.
We have had a wonderful, beautiful dance with much more laughter than tears. Lots of joy, adventure, and just being with each other. Dutch loved people. He loved Oakmont and this community. And he especially loved his children and his grandchildren. And now they will tell you some things they loved about you, Papa. I
I'm Shelby. I am Pop-Up's first grandchild, and I have so many wonderful memories of Pop-Up. When I look back and think of him, I will think of things like his amazing fist-slamming laugh when he would be at the dinner table. Usually that was over hours and hours of political debates where there was lots of Chardonnay being drank at the table. I will remember lots of trips that we went on to Tahoe and Phoenix for Christmas and Easter, all of the holidays we spent with them. I'll remember lots of trips in their motorhome that they took us on, whether it was camping. Last summer, Pop-Up and Banna drove their motorhome all the way up to Seattle just to visit me for the whole entire weekend. I have lots of wonderful, wonderful memories. What I will really remember the most, though, about Pop-Up is how incredibly curious he was. He was the most curious person I think I've ever met. He was so curious about technology, how it was changing our lives. I had so many conversations with him about the future of our world with technology. He used to tell me he was so sad that he couldn't be here in 50 years to see, self-driving cars on the road. And I know someday when I'm sitting in a self-driving car, he'll be right there with me. And he was also so curious about our family and our history and genealogy, and he did so much research. And I'm so fortunate that he did all of that and that he was able to connect so many people in our family, and that legacy will live on forever. Pop-Up, I will miss you so much, and I'm so grateful that I got to have you in my life for 26 wonderful years. Thank you for everything, and we will carry your legacy on for many years to come. Love you.
Hi, I'm Danny Licklider. I'm Dutch and Lois's granddaughter. And when I was little, I remember my Pop-Up always would teach me how to do the "We Are Penn State" chant. And one of my favorite memories is when I was in high school and I had just decided where I was going to college, but I hadn't told any of my family. And we were having like a big family party, and everyone went around the table putting bets on where I was going. And of course, Pop-Up said Penn State with his fingers crossed. And then I finally announced that I was going to Penn State, and Pop-Up threw down his wallet and said, "You can have it all." And he was so excited that I had chosen to go to the same school as him. And I feel so lucky that we had this Penn State bond together. In many ways, I would say that Pop-Up was my biggest fan. He was so supportive and always there for his entire family, no matter what. And so we're definitely going to miss him, but we have so many wonderful memories that we're going to cherish and that we'll have for the rest of our lives with Pop-Up and Banna and the rest of the family. I feel very grateful for that.
Hi, I'm Gabe, grandson of Pop-Up and Banna, and I think the one thing that Pop-Up's passing has really been able to shed light on is the fact that we're only given a certain amount of time on this earth in human form, and I feel like Pop-Up acknowledged that and confronted it head on and spent the proud 81 years of his life having a good time and making friends and doing all the things that you'd want to do in a lifetime. And I feel like that's just beautiful, and we just need to follow in his footsteps, I guess, is a good way to put it. Because that's just the best way to live, just do what you want, and that's what Pop-Up did. And I feel like being able to go back and gather all the friends and look at all the photos and think of all the memories really just shines a light on how fantastic his life was and how inspiring that is to me and to everyone else to live a life like that.
Hey, my name is Miles. I am the grandson of Pop-Up and Banna. One story that I sort of have and a thank you is Pop-Up bought me my first video camera when I was turning 10, I believe, at one of our mass birthday celebrations, because 4 of us have birthdays in February, including Pop-Up, myself, my dad, and Steve. So he got me this camera, and I think that may have nudged my life in a slightly different direction than it would have been going. I had no real hobbies up to that point, and then started making videos. So that was one thing that the two of us shared, was this sort of love for videos and creating things like that. So I really am gonna miss him a lot. Gonna miss the enthusiasm and being able to sort of connect to these things, tell him stories of jobs I've done, or him telling me of projects he's working on. But Pop-Up, I love you, and I'm really gonna miss you. And thank you for everything and for being such a strong influence in all of our lives and helping us out through difficult times. So you'll be missed.
So now I guess it's my turn. Well, Lois and I have really enjoyed our 8 years living here in Oakmont Village. We keep quite busy. My hobby has been producing videos, and I've produced many of them for the community. Last year, probably the biggest thing that happened for me was that I turned 80 years old. Now that's a huge milestone in a person's life. For one thing, it means that the bulk of your life is behind you. Each passing day is one less that you have on your calendar. And so the important thing is to try to enjoy the day, keep a positive attitude, and try to do something constructive. And so if I have any advice to pass on to my grandchildren, it would be this: do the best you can with what you have, where you are. I want to thank each of them for agreeing to do this little video. It's been fun, and I hope you find it rewarding.
That was an amazing video. Everybody here in Oakmont, we knew you grandkids. We knew you. We knew about the trips. We knew about Penn State, the Nittany Lions. He shared his life with all of us, as Lois did. We got to meet Dutch and Lois's daughter, Sherry, at one of the symposiums, and this is my first opportunity, unfortunately, to meet you, Steve. Dutch was an incredible human being, full of love, full of sharing, full of spirit, full of scotch. He loved his community, he loved his family, and if you were part of the community, you were part of his family. And you, our dear friends, grandchildren, children, nephews, we're all one family today, and we all stand with you, Lois, giving us our love, our support. We're here for you, and thank you for inviting us all to be able to take part of this love fest for our dear, dear friend Dutch. We hope you'll all join us for some wine and some cookies and wine and red wine and white wine. So please join us, and thank you all for coming and supporting Dutch's family. And Dutch, of course, I have to say this, went out with his boots on, right? Yeah, vital, just the way we all like it. Thank you very much for attending today.